I'm John McKee, editor of Messianic Apologetics. Messianicapologetics.net. And I would like to welcome you to this episode of Messianic Insider, your theology and news roundup for June the 9th, 2025. We start a new week. I had a lot going on this past weekend, but I was able to, as best as I could, stay up with the news. Last night in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, we had some major thunderstorms. In fact, when I got up this morning, our internet connection was not working. We did not lose power, but we did lose internet for a while. So I'm thankful that things appear to be back in working order. What is going on right now, other than the work of the kingdom, which of course is pressing for all believers, all the redeemed in Messiah? We've got the ongoing fallout of Elon and Trump, things happening between Russia and Ukraine, Greta Thunberg trying to break the blockade in Gaza. She's been picked up by the IDF now. And we have the riots taking place in Los Angeles. So huge amount of things we need to be praying for, huge amount of things we need to be paying attention to. All right, so before we get started first on our theology roundup, we do this every Monday. Please be sure to go to the Messianic Apologetics website, messianicapologetics.net. And here you see in the right-hand column, blog notifications. Be automatically notified by email when Messianic Apologetics is updated. Put your email in there, hit subscribe, and then you'll be asked to confirm. So whenever we post something new on our website or we reintroduce something, you should receive an automatic notification. That is different from our email announcement list, which you can subscribe to by clicking on the envelope icon right there. That's something we have to specifically put together in order for you to be notified. Excuse me. All right, so let's get started on our theology roundup. What topic are we going to be discussing today? Because between what we have available on our websites, outreachisrael.net, messianicapologetics.net, and then our different books, commentaries, publications, we have a lot we get to pull from in terms of the archives to address some of your inquiries. And of course, a big part of my day is spent not only updating various publications, but working on new resources as well. From some of our feedback last week, because we do discuss issues of the second coming, the rapture debate, I had a very polite response from someone who adheres to the pre-wrath rapture position. And recently we did add a frequently asked questions entry on the pre-wrath rapture. So go to messianicapologetics.net. See, you hear the, excuse me again, hear the FAQs tab. Click on Volume 2. These are new entries which are being added 2022 to the present. They're going into a book right now. When the book gets big enough, then we'll think about publishing it. It's not on any particular timetable. And I suppose when we finish Volume 2, we'll have to start a Volume 3. But these are all listed in alphabetical order. So pre-wrath rapture, go down to the letter P. Pre-wrath rapture. So click there, and then a PDF file will open up. Some of you are familiar with the concept of the pre-wrath rapture. Others of you only think of the whole rapture debate in terms of pre-tribulationism and post-tribulationism. And I am seen to identify with post-tribulationism. But there are a lot of people out there who adhere to pre-wrath. So what's the difference between a pre-wrath belief and a post-trib belief? Can you help me to understand some of the differences between the pre-wrath rapture and a post-tribulation rapture? The doctrine of the pre-wrath rapture can be widely accredited to the 1990 book by Marvin Rosenthal, appropriately titled The Pre-Wrath Rapture of the Church. It offered a major alternative to the popular, imminent pre-tribulation rapture, but also tried to seriously take into account the thrust of 1 Thessalonians 5:9. For God has not destined us for wrath, but for obtaining salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ. 1 Thessalonians 5:9, New American Standard. The pre-wrath rapture largely advocates that at the point of Revelation 6:17, for the great day of their wrath has come, and who is able to stand, New American Standard, believers will be spared from the tribulation judgments, which they classify as wrath, mainly the trumpet and vial or bowl judgments of Revelation chapters 7 through 16. In some ways, the pre-wrath rapture is a modified version of the mid-tribulation rapture, as it tends to place the gathering of the saints about 2/3 through the tribulation period. The effects of the pre-wrath rapture on contemporary eschatology are very real, to the point that the second edition of Zondervan's 3 Views on the Rapture offers the pre-wrath rapture as an option, but no longer the mid-tribulation rapture. Post-tribulationists have generally looked at pre-wrath rapture advocates as allies against pre-tribulationism. The pre-wrath view, as originally espoused by Rosenthal, to be sure, was often rooted within many dispensational presuppositions. But, like post-tribulationism, it directly takes on the widespread popular view that believers are to be removed from planet Earth before the start of the 70th week of Israel. This means that unlike pre-tribulationism's major selling point, one of an escape from all of the difficulties of the tribulation, a pre-wrath rapture would require believers to remain on earth for the majority of the tribulation. A pre-wrath rapture stands at odds with pre-tribulationism. Both the pre-wrathers and post-tribulationists advocate that believers are to be spared from God's wrath, but they may be seen to have some disagreements involving specifics. The customary pre-wrath tribulation scenario, as originally advocated by those like Rosenthal, may be seen to support a strictly sequential approach to the book of Revelation, not too different than many pre-tribulation rapture charts. This may be a reason why, excuse me again, in the pre-wrath model, the trumpet and vial/bowl judgments of Revelation chapters 7 through 16 compose the wrath of God. Post-tribulationists, such as this writer, me, may be seen instead to advocate more of a symphonic presentation of the seal, trumpet, and vial/bowl judgments of Revelation. This is not unlike various prophetic depictions from the Tanakh, Old Testament, where prophecies are not always seen to be delivered in a linear manner. For a post-tribulationist, this allows those judgments, specifically classified to be as orge or wrath, to be limited to a much shorter space of time in a post-tribulational window. The only times orge appears in the book of Revelation are in a post-tribulational context. Revelation 6:16, 17, 11:18, 1410, 1619, 1915. It is used after the sixth seal, Revelation 6, 16 and 17, the seventh or the last trumpet, Revelation 11, 18, the seventh vial or bowl, Revelation 16, 19, and is most importantly used to describe the eternal punishment of the condemned, Revelation 14, 10. On the whole, there are more areas of agreement than disagreement, which post-tribulationists have with advocates of a pre-wrath rapture. This writer, me, chooses to look at such differences as points of further collaboration and investigation, not unnecessary division and rivalry. So I hope that gives you a good idea about, at least in broad strokes, not only what the pre-wrath rapture is, but some possible differences post-tribulationists may have with it. And I would very much encourage you, if you have a specific topic you'd like to see us address on our Theology Roundup, please do let me know. Please direct message me. We take the feedback we receive very seriously. And as we have now been working through Messianic Insider 5 times a week and figuring out, what some of the dynamics are, I think we're going to be addressing more and more, detailed theological issues like this one, but not always on eschatology. There's certainly a lot of other things involving the Messianic community, which we definitely need to be discussing. Okay, so that finishes our Theology Roundup for today. Now, we always do the Theology Roundup first because when we go into the News Roundup, all of the news, of course, is something which is time sensitive. And we got a lot of things which took place over the weekend, things which are very concerning to me. Hopefully, they're concerning to you as well. And the Lord is in charge, as my grandmother Mary Ruth used to say. Now, we're going to be going through a number of news stories. All of these will be linked when this episode is archived at messianicapologetics.net. So you can go look at them, you can go read them, watch them, whatever the case may be. Okay, so let's get started. Our first story, this came across my social media feed Friday afternoon after we finished up. So it's a few days old, 3 days old, from Instagram. As of today, so that would have been Friday, we're officially closer to 2050 than to 2000. Oh my goodness. Let that sink in for a moment. So we are now closer to the year 2050, and if we reach 2050, I will be 70 years old. That's hard to believe. We're closer to 2050 than we were to the year 2000. So what that means for us, of course, as Messianic people, is that other day we've been putting things off for, we're not really ready to address that subject. We can wait another day. Well, guess what? That other day is now. We're not going to put things off indefinitely and wait for the environment to change and wait for people to, suck up their insecurity or whatever it is. That day is now. Closer to the year 2050. These are the kinds of things, am I carrying enough life insurance? Do I need to go pre-plan my funeral? Do I need to be thinking about what I leave behind? Yeah, that's why we really don't think about this kind of stuff. Okay, our next story. Of course, we ended last week with the flare-up between President Donald Trump and Elon Musk. So here we have from June the 6th, Breitbart. So this would have been Friday afternoon. Elon's dad just sided with President Trump. SpaceX and Tesla CEO Elon Musk's father, Errol Musk, said Friday on Al Arabiya English's Global News Today that President Donald Trump will prevail in the public feud with his son. That doesn't mean that Errol Musk doesn't agree with his son, perhaps, or understand where his son is coming from. It's just like, you're not the president of the United States. But yeah, this has been something interesting to watch. Our next story, also from June the 6th, the New York Post. Elon Musk's estranged daughter appeared to gloat Friday about her billionaire dad's epic feud with President Trump, saying, "I love being proven right," and cackling with glee on social media. Families don't always agree with one another, and it's always interesting, especially with the intersection of politics and popular society, where these things can lead. Also, this was on June the 7th from Newsmax. Not really interested, President Donald Trump said Friday. He is ready to turn the page on trying to make amends with Elon Musk. Now, what's going to happen? What's not going to happen? We'll wait and see what happens this week between the Trump-Musk feud. Okay, and I think this came up in my social media feed because everyone's paying attention to anything involving Elon Musk. So this is from the channel Future Tech. Mars missions face major challenges, especially long-term travel times that expose astronauts to microgravity and cosmic radiation. While nuclear propulsion systems promise faster travel, they remain costly, complex, and politically sensitive. So here you see missions to Mars with Starship, that's SpaceX, could only take 3 months. And with this begs a whole lot of questions involving our solar system, life on planet Earth. Are we going to be able to establish at least some kind of a permanent presence on our moon, Luna, on a place like Mars, even if it's just basically scientists and military? I'm someone who definitely believes that there's a lot to be gained by having a moon base, having a Mars base. There's a lot in terms we can learn regarding science, regarding new technologies, which can be employed here on Earth. Certainly, a lot was gained from the early NASA missions with wanting to land on the moon by the end of the 1960s. And so there's a lot to be gained by things like this. Now, one of the questions I saw circulate on social media, I believe it was on Rabbi Brian Samuel's channel. Somebody asked, do you think we should have a permanent presence as humanity on the moon or mainly on Mars? And he said he didn't believe that was appropriate because the Bible is Earth-centric. To be honest, while the Bible is Earth-centric, this is one of these areas where there's going to be a lot of discussion, especially as it involves questions, regardless of what side you take, questions of overpopulation. I'm approaching it more from the standpoint of you establish a base on the moon, establish a base on Mars, maybe on one of the asteroids. What can you gain in terms of scientific advancement? What can you gain in terms of developing new technologies like recycling technologies? Because, some of these places that you got to take your own water, you got to take your own food, you've got to maximize, everything you bring with you, your provisions, your electricity, your clothing. How do you make it? At least recognizing that new supplies are not going to arrive from Earth for at least a week, several months, whatever the case may be. And if the Lord tarries, excuse me, if the Lord tarries in another century or so, we can expect as a human civilization to have some kind of multi-world or what's the word? Anyway, we're going to have a presence on the moon. We're going to have a presence on Mars. We're going to have a presence in the asteroid belt. Now, how does that affect religion? Well, I think when the NASA astronauts went to the moon, they were in constant contact with Houston. They stayed on Earth Standard Time. So there's always going to be some connection to Earth. But we will inevitably become a multi-planetary civilization. And indeed, when the Lord returns to Earth and reigns from Jerusalem, I'm definitely one of these people who believes that many of the mysteries of the greater universe will be revealed to us. And if there are people living on the moon, living on Mars, then during the millennial kingdom, well, he'll be there to sort it out for us. I don't worry about that. Okay. From Open Source Intel, June the 6th. Big surprise, we aren't winning the PR war. A new Pew Research Center survey reveals predominantly negative global views of Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Across 24 countries, median 62% view Israel unfavorably. Kenya and Nigeria were exceptions, 50 to 56% favorable. Turkey showed 93% disapproval. Netanyahu rated poorly in nearly all surveyed nations. Indeed, you go on social media, it's overwhelmingly pro-Palestinian, even if you recognize that Israel has restrained itself as best as it's been able to during this conflict in Gaza. And how does that affect your local Messianic congregation, our Messianic movement? Those are the real questions we should be asking, and they're uncomfortable. But if we believe the Holy Scriptures, the world is going to come against Israel. And eventually it's going to spill over into the more civilized Western countries. Whether that dovetails with some of the Islamic problems and challenges we've got remains to be seen. But we got to pay attention. We can't live in isolation. Okay, from, excuse me, from Instagram, this is yesterday from Charisma Magazine. This is an announcement. The new Jonathan Cahn book, The Avatar is Here, an ancient mystery is unfolding before our eyes, and it's reshaping America, world leaders, and the future itself. Who is the Avatar? And what happens when ancient gods return to power? Now, Avatar apparently is going to be Jonathan Cahn's next book. Whether you like Jonathan Cahn or not, he is one of the most well-known Messianic Jews in the world. Anyone who goes to the Messiah Conference in Grantham, Pennsylvania, he is the keynote speaker the final evening, Saturday evening. When we go to the IAMCS Rabbis Conference, he is the final speaker the final evening. And normally there are complimentary copies of his latest book. And frequently Stephen Strang will also be there from Charisma. Not asking whether you like him or not, but we do have to recognize he is a voice of influence, and his ideas, his points of view do influence the Messianic community. And look, this is the kind of book you're going to see at Sam's Club or Walmart, or it's definitely going to be passed around your congregation. So is this idea of the Avatar, is it? I mean, I don't know. I haven't read it, but I'm suspecting it's tied into, if all the things Charisma tends to post recently have any degree of accuracy, I think it's probably tied into concepts of the Nephilim and fallen angels, etc. So we'll wait and see. Is it going to? I don't know if it's going to be available when we go to the Messiah Conference. I just looking at this, I don't know what the release date is, but when it's out, we'll likely have to read it. Okay, from Open Source Intel, the flotilla trying to break the blockade. Greta Thunberg. Shayatet 13 naval commandos are preparing for the arrival of the Gaza-bound blockade-breaking ship, the Madeline. The Navy has recently held drills to simulate several response scenarios. So this is a little dated to June the 8th. So this was yesterday. We're going to kind of trace what took place with the Madeline. Of course, there's Greta Thunberg right there. They've got to get... Okay, the next one. So this is from yesterday, open source intel. Greta has been arrested by the IDF after failing to comply. The IDF now has the ship and all 50 kilograms of flour in its possession as well. I don't really care for Greta Thunberg, and I'm sure many of you don't either. She used to be majorly into hyper-environmentalism, but now the new trend is standing with Gaza. So what happened? Okay, well, we're going to get that in a moment. This is from the New York Post, although this is not the only news venue which has reported this. This is from yesterday, June the 8th. The former lead singer of an award-winning Christian rock band was allegedly leading a double life as he faces accusations of sexual assault, grooming, and drug abuse dating as far as 2 decades. Michael Tate, who served as the frontman for Newsboys for 16 years before leaving in January, allegedly abused alcohol and drugs before inappropriately touching several people, according to an investigative report from a Christian media outlet. Here's another one who's fallen from the Christian world. Another scandal. And this is not the first, and it's not going to be the last. Now, in this case, not that I'm going to give Michael Tate an out. He was involved in the music scene, as opposed to being some kind of a megachurch pastor. And so when you are in the music scene, whether it's with a Christian group or a secular group, and you travel around to different places, yeah, it's very easy to see people get into different substances and be tempted by the ways of the world. So, yeah, I can't say I was necessarily someone who listened to Newsboys, but a lot of people I knew certainly did. And how is this going to affect their faith? And more than anything else, who can I trust? Who can I trust? Who doesn't have some kind of a big skeleton in their closet? All right, so this is the story which has been developing over the weekend. The riots occurring in Los Angeles right now. This is one of the first things that came across my feed this weekend from Breitbart, June the 8th. Invaded and occupied. President Donald Trump announced on Truth Social that he has directed the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and the Department of Defense, DoD, to aid in quelling civil unrest as Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE agents conduct raids in the city of Los Angeles. The president said in a post that the directive will liberate Los Angeles while pledging to expel migrants in the United States illegally. Okay, so this has to do with the immigration situation here in America, here in the United States. This is likely to increase over the next few days. That's what I'm anticipating. Is Los Angeles going to be the only place we see this happen? And how little or how much will President Trump actually call on the U.S. military, the Marines, the Army to intervene? Yeah, this is where we have to just pray like we never have before, because the deep concern I have, and I'm sure many of you all do as well, we remember what occurred 5 years ago with the BLM riots and some of those things. How much of that could now be in the process of being repeated the summer of 2025? Here's something I think is important to pay attention to. This is from Joel Richardson. This was posted on his X feed yesterday afternoon, June the 8th. Speaking of the concept of greater Israel, some of you have seen things on social media with a map of what is believed to be the biblical borders of Israel, and it basically includes most of the modern Middle East. This has not gone unnoticed by some others. So this is what he says to this. Ironically, these greater Israel maps, which can be found all over the internet, I've even seen them featured in Messianic congregations on the PowerPoint slides, are most often created by Christians who support Israel and who are ignorant regarding the actual boundaries of the Promised Land as defined in the Bible. The Euphrates River is only a boundary marker in the north. Then, Muslims or anti-Semites in general see these maps, think they are made by Jews, and then claim that all Jews want to occupy the entire Middle East. Who suffers? Jews. Okay? So, biblically, my main problem with those who think that the biblical borders of Israel basically make up the modern Middle East all the way to Kuwait, basically, why would God have told Abraham to pick up from Ur of the Chaldees, go all the way to Canaan, when he perhaps intended the promised land he gave them to include where he started from? Why didn't God just say, I'm going to give you this land, and then every place your feet will be trodden, or every place your feet will walk? He could have done that. No, God told Abraham to leave Ur of the Chaldees, which is basically in modern-day Kuwait, southeastern Iraq, and then go to the land of Canaan. And the references you see to the Euphrates River, that's what gets everybody confused, not realizing that the Euphrates River goes all the way into Syria. And here on Joel Richardson's feed, somebody posted a map, and this is more or less the biblical borders of Israel. It's larger than the modern day state of Israel for certain, but it does not include most of the modern Middle East. And I think we need to stress that more and more frequently, because some of those maps which circulate, like these are the biblical borders of Israel, are interpreted not only by Islamicists, but right-wing anti-Semites, neo-Nazi types. The Jews want to take over the Middle East, and once they take over the Middle East, the world is next. That is what Richardson is rightfully coming against. All right, so back to more the Greta Thunberg situation. From the channel Vivid on X, Israel ordered the IDF to show the entire Greta's boat crew the videos of the horrors of October the 7th massacre to show them exactly who they support. Likewise, from Open Source Intel, last night, June the 8th, Israeli Defense Minister Yisrael Katz reportedly instructed the IDF to show Greta Thunberg and fellow activists footage of October the 7th and the atrocities that took place. It's appropriate that the anti-Semitic Greta and her Hamas-supporting groups see the atrocities committed by Hamas against women, the elderly, and children, and understand who Israel is defending itself against, said Katz. So this is, of course, something which will continue to unfold. I have no doubt that Greta will eventually be allowed to return home to Sweden, but only after being told what the hell she tried to do. Okay, two more stories. This is from today, the New York Post, June the 9th. At least 2,000 anti-ICE protesters took over a major highway in downtown Los Angeles while rioters lit self-driving cars on fire Sunday as the LAPD chief admitted that his officers are overwhelmed by the violence and vandalism on the third day of demonstrations in the city. Are we going to see this increase? Are we going to see sanity and cooler heads prevail? All we can do is sit back and watch. We know in Yeshua's Olivet Discourse that there is going to be wars and rumors of wars, conflict between nations. Excuse me, some would take nations more along the lines of ethnic groups. That's what this is. And while we definitely want here in the United States there to be a degree of security. This is not how you let your grievances be known. You can protest, but once things get violent, once you start lighting cars on fire, once you start disrupting normal business, that's when something sooner or later is going to happen. Okay, and then finally, from the New York Post today, June the 9th, Russia has launched its biggest drone attack on Ukraine since the start of the war, with almost 500 individual strikes, a day after U.S. officials warned that such a retaliation from Moscow was likely. A total of 479 drones and 20 missiles were launched at Ukraine by Russian forces overnight, the Ukrainian Air Force said in a statement on Monday. This is also a situation which is getting more and more complicated. We're seeing it escalate. Is it going to be able to de-escalate? Will there be peace? Keep in mind, this has been going on for almost 3.5 years. Look, we got a lot of things we got to be praying about as the people of God. Yes, there are things which occur in prophecy, which are supposed to happen in the days leading up to the Messiah's return, but we don't know what the timetable is, but what we do know is that, excuse me, these are the kinds of situations which make normal everyday living more complicated. They raise a lot of questions. Why are the people in Los Angeles rioting? What is Greta Thunberg trying to prove with delivering 50 kilograms of flour to Gaza? What about Russia, Ukraine? And of course, what's going to happen with the Iranian situation? And of course, we haven't discussed the ongoing economic questions raised by the tariffs of the Trump administration. We tend to not address those kinds of economic things. Yeah. As citizens of the kingdom of God, we serve a different realm. Nothing which is occurring takes place without God's complete knowledge. As I said, the Lord is in charge, and we just have to continue to appeal to him for his grace and mercy and protection upon us as believers. But we can't live isolated as though these things are not occurring, because people who get caught off guard are those who go silent and, well, I'm just going to pay attention to my Torah studies. What happens in the world isn't my concern. That is unmistakably naive. We don't need to be naive. We need to pay attention, but we need to do so in a realistic way. And that is why we now have Messianic Insider 5 times a week, and we have our ongoing conversation. We know things change. We know things can improve. Excuse me. We know things can get worse. But we need to have that ongoing conversation in both theology as well as current events. As always, on behalf of Outreach Israel Ministries and Messianic Apologetics, I would like to sincerely thank you for your ongoing prayers, encouragement, and donations toward all of our ministry efforts. You can give online at outreachisrael.net/support. We'll see you again tomorrow with another episode of Messianic Insider. Until then, may God bless you, shalom, and take care.